What's up, everybody? It's Chandler Rome with Crush City Territory here with Tyler Stafford on a very cold Monday in Houston, Texas. Tyler, are you staying warm?
I am. This is one of the like 8 days a year that you get to bust out, your one nice coat. So I love it. My daughter, I've started calling any cold weather daddy weather because this is my favorite. And so my daughter walked outside this morning. She came back in. She goes, "It's daddy weather." So pretty pumped about that. What about you?
That's really cute. Like to hear it said from that perspective is really cute. Hearing daddy weather in any
Oh
other
yeah.
connotation would be a little bit
Well,
disturbing.
I knew that you were a freak, and I didn't think I'd be able to say it to you. But yes, it's adorable. So there you go.
Yeah, it's going well. I went to the I went to the Rockets. The Rockets played the Lakers last night.
Hmm.
If you have a chance to see LeBron James play basketball, I highly recommend it. That man is
Who?
40 years old, and he was unreal. Anthony Davis is unbelievable. They were both tremendous. You know who else was tremendous? The guy that we couldn't figure out his name last podcast, Clutch.
Hmm.
So Clutch at one of the media timeouts, they got this huge ladder at center court, and he climbed up to the top and tried to do like one of those pikes like the gymnasts do, like was holding on to the top of the ladder and like had his body horizontally. And then he just climbed to the top and took it all in. It was a large crowd that showered him with applause. So I'm going to move Clutch up the mascot power rankings. Orbit, you're still number one. Don't worry. Clutch will be two, and Cal McNair will be three. Do you think
Hmm.
that works?
Yeah, and then I had a lot of people correct me. First on the scene was my buddy Aaron, who texted me and was like, "You're thinking of Turbo, which was the man in the spandex tights that would do like backflips on trampolines at Rockets games, not Clutch." So apologies to Turbo. He was super cool. Another Rockets adjacent thing. I was in choir in high school, and we sang the national anthem at the Rockets game when I was there, and I was like on the end of the line, and then the players stood next to you,
Mhm.
and the last player in line was Yao Ming.
Oh,
And my freshman year of high school, I was 4'11". Like I was tiny, tiny. And then I grew. That's why I quit baseball. I played baseball my whole life. I'm left-handed. I was 4'11", and I was like, well, I can't play first base.
you
That's
can play.
all.
The Astros have a 4'11" second baseman.
Yeah. Well, he's much better at hitting than me. Also, I guess my other issue is that I was bad at hitting and running and throwing.
Ah,
And so maybe it wasn't the left-handed bit. Anyway, then I grew 8 inches in between my freshman and sophomore year. But I will never forget standing next to Yao Ming. Like, you can't comprehend how tall every basketball player is, regardless. Like Steph Curry looks tiny out there. He's like 6'5". He's huge. If you saw him in the street, you'd be like, who's that giant? But he looks like a little baby on the court. But anyway, I will always remember standing next to Yao Ming. It was amazing.
so did you reach his waist? Like when as you were standing next to him, like where were
Yeah,
you?
I was probably like, I was probably like just above his waist. Like truly, I think I was like at his belly button. Like he was enormous. I remember his feet. Like his shoes looked fake. They looked like clown shoes. And I'm sure they were like custom made. Like I remember Shaq had, custom shoes made. LSU legend, Shaquille O'Neal. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Uh,
I didn't even have to bring it up on my own this time.
but yeah, lots of fun. I love Rockets games.
Um,
I'm putting this out here in the universe. My like apex sports entertainment thing that I want to experience at one point in my life is to sit courtside at a game. It can be the worst game ever. Like I don't care. I just want to see that like athleticism in front of you, because I feel like you really don't get to experience that in most sports. But I want to sit like courtside and just see these people run back and forth. It looks awesome.
So I was very, very fortunate that I did get to sit courtside last night.
Dang it. Come on.
For Lakers Rockets. My cousins very generously had an extra ticket that they had acquired for. I wasn't the first row of seats where like Tillman Fertitta and his kids sit. I was the second row. And one of
Word adjacent.
Yeah, it was, again, to see the speed with which the game moves and the athleticism that these large dudes like just put on display. It's incredible. And look, I don't get awestruck a ton, but something happened in the third quarter. It was the Lakers were shooting on the basket that was near us. Anthony Davis hit like a step back off balance three that forced the Rockets into a timeout. He hit it from about me to this chair I'm sitting that's directly across from my table. Then he turned around and did the ice in the veins symbol to us. And like, it was one of the coolest things just the fact that this man with this sort of wingspan has this sort of dexterity and coordination to hit that shot. And then it was one of the coolest things I've seen in a very long time. And that's somebody like, look, I don't usually get awestruck by athletes or athletic endeavors, but that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing. So I think I'm going to be friends with your cousins is what I'm hearing. They seem like the hookup.
They're cooler than me. So
that's not a high bar to cross.
It's a low bar. I don't think people are tuning in to listen about the Rockets, but maybe they are because the Rockets are kind of good. Congratulations to them for not blowing the 24-point lead they had against the Lakers last night. They survived LeBron being LeBron in the third quarter, and Amen Thompson, really, really, really good player. You're more worried about the Astros, who things have finally, I think, calmed down a little bit. It seemed like when this podcast launched, we were doing emergency shows like every other day because they were trading someone or signing someone or trying to trade for someone, and then he told them he didn't want to come here. Very, very disjointed last 3 or 4 weeks. Seems like things have settled down a little bit. I think a lot of people are wondering what's next, if there is going to be anything next. And so it got me to thinking, Tyler, like, I wonder, from your perspective, if this team, as it's currently constructed, if this roster is the roster that reports to West Palm Beach in February, like how would you feel if they did nothing else this offseason? How would you feel about this roster?
I think that it has the construction of a good roster. I think they currently have 8 starting players. I think their plan right now is to just install some sort of black hole in front of the Crawford boxes and hope that all balls get hit there and that the umpires don't notice. Who's the third outfielder?
Yeah, right now I'd probably say, again, this is if they make no other additions. I'd say it'd be some sort of a timeshare platoon situation between Zach DeZenzo and Taylor Trammell. For those of you that don't remember that Taylor Trammell is on the team, they acquired him the first day of the GM meetings. So in November, he's former first-round pick. These are the kind of guys Dana Brown has really kind of shown that he likes. He likes these guys that went in the top half of drafts, like early round draft picks that just maybe haven't found their potential. Because the talent's there. Like, you don't get drafted in the first or second round, like if you don't have like some really high end potential. And so I think that's what they're hoping for with Trammell, that he can kind of unlock his potential. He's a left-handed hitting bat, which they need. This is a very right-handed lineup right now. But you can look at that and it's maybe akin to Trey Cabbage last year, who you kind of heard the same stuff about, had some of the highest exit velos in pro ball. They thought maybe they could help his pitch identification, pitch selection, swing decisions. And he was just kind of a up and down fourth outfielder guy that, didn't really amount to much. So right now I'd probably say their third outfielder in left field is some combination of Taylor Trammell and Zach DeZenzo, I don't know what you thought of him last year when he came up, Tyler. We didn't see him a ton, but
I did not think of him. I think is my main my main complaint there.
He's a prospect.
He's good. I'm excited. I just mean, like, I literally could not off the top of my head have told you who was going to be playing the outfield. And I'm nervous that you used in the same sentence West Palm Beach and then a timeshare in the outfield. That feels like a recipe for disaster. I've spent my whole life trying to avoid timeshares in Florida, and so I feel like we've got to come up with a better plan than that.
Platoon. Okay, we'll go with platoon.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my biggest baseball pet peeves is that people misuse the word platoon. A platoon cannot be two guys that hit from the same side of the plate. Like if Taylor Trammell and Zach DeZenzo are this team's two left fielders, that is a natural platoon. Like one is left-handed, one is right-handed. Two right-handed hitters cannot form a platoon; they form a timeshare. That's my quick rage. 30 seconds.
Where are you at on batting around?
I think all 9 hitters. I think.
Does the 10th guy have to come up, or if the 9th person makes an out, is that batting around?
I think the 10th person has to come up. I think Jose Altuve has to bat twice in an inning for the Astros to have batted around.
I think he should bat twice every inning. I've been saying that for years.
They may try to figure out a way.
Oh gosh, I hope. I mean, we'll talk about that later. But no, thank you. This is gonna let my nerd come out even more. This is essentially a reference, maybe exclusively for my sister who reads Harry Potter as much as I have in my life. Every time I hear Taylor Trammell's name, I think of in the first book, the philosopher of the Philosopher's Stone is named Nicholas Flamel. And the way Hermione says it in the movies is like Nicholas Flamel. And I think of that literally every time. I go Taylor Trammell in my head. And so I just need that out there in the world so other people can have that floating around in their brain like I do.
You're giving the Astros marketing team, if any of them are listening to this, you're giving them ideas. This is free content. You already created Wooston.
Mm-hmm. We need to tell Josh that, but that was a Tyler Stafford original. I came up with Wooston. I also came up with. Did I tell you? Maybe I did, but I interviewed for the like social media. It was like a part-time job a couple years ago, and I was still teaching at the time, so it didn't work out with timing. It was a part-time job with no benefits, and then I got to the end of the interview, and they're like, "And of course, you will be working full-time hours with no health insurance." And I was like, I have a family, so that's not going to work out. But I did, one of my like packets that I submitted was I wanted like a t-shirt with Kyle Tucker holding the bat with no gloves that said wood grain gripping. And I thought that was really good. And then they used it. So that's 2 things. You're welcome, Astros community.
And then the pitch clock came and Kyle Tucker couldn't grip the wood because he couldn't do his routine. So he had to stop spitting on his hands. So he had to start wearing batting gloves. Kyle Tucker, his absence will be felt in that outfield that we were just talking about. They don't, I think if there is one area that the fans are really honing in on that they need to make an addition, it is in the outfield.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this once, and hopefully we never have to revisit this. They are not in on Anthony Santander. I know that there was a lot of scuttlebutt this past week on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling the site now that they were seriously engaged in Anthony Santander. They are not. This is a time of year where I would implore you, as you're consuming your baseball content, be careful who you believe, be careful who you trust. There's a lot of stuff that gets thrown against the wall every winter. I could text Scott Boras right now, and technically I've been in touch with Alex Bregman's camp.
Prove it.
Dana Brown could text Joel Wolf tomorrow, and the Astros could be in touch with Roki Sasaki's camp. There's a lot of thin, just eyewash, honestly. It's a baseball term, eyewash reporting that goes on in the winter. I'm here to tell you that they are not in on Anthony Santander. I think they'd like to have him. I think he'd fit in Houston very well. He's tight with Jose Altuve. He played for Omar Lopez on Team Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic this past year. So he has got connections in the Astros clubhouse, but the sort of deal he wants, they're not going to pay that. I think they'll hang around if his market just absolutely craters. I don't think that's going to happen. But, in the absence of Anthony Santander, they should be looking for an outfielder. And I think, Tyler, the way that we have, and I've done some reporting on this, and I wrote about it a little bit in The Athletic this week, the only way that they are going to add another significant piece to the major league roster is by moving some salary. The team is being very, very mindful of where it is in the CBT. I've been told straight out that Jim Crane does not want to exceed the competitive balance tax for a second consecutive year, with the caveat that I was told this last year too, and he shifted his stance when Josh Hader became available. They gave Josh Hader $95 million for 5 years, and they paid the luxury tax for the first time in his ownership tenure.
So it sounds like you have no idea what you're talking about, and Santander is going to be here any minute.
Of course. No, that's how this goes. He'll sign tonight, and we'll have to just
another emergency
podcast,
pod.
do another emergency pod. But as we sit here right now, I do not think Anthony Santander is a realistic possibility for the Astros unless they can move a lot of money. And when you start to look at who they could move, it's been reported throughout the winter that they are trying to move Ryan Presley. He's got a $14 million salary in 2025. The Astros don't want to pay that. Any team that wants Ryan Presley is going to ask the Astros to pay down a little bit, or not even a little bit, a lot of that $14 million. Ryan Presley, Tyler, I know he can be a polarizing kind of figure for the Astros. I thought he was fine last year. He wasn't elite level Ryan Presley like we've seen, but some of the underlying metrics said he was pretty unlucky. He didn't miss as many bats as he usually does, but I think he had like a 3.10 FIP. He had a ERA below 4. Like, I think we should point out too that the Astros want to contend in 2025, and Ryan Presley makes their bullpen better. Like, where do you stand right now on the thought of Ryan Presley maybe being on the block?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the like characters of the Astros dominance of the last decade, because they essentially, acquired him for nothing from the Twins. And it was one of those things where, he was good, but he wasn't great on the Twins. And I just remember Twitter that day, like the Astros traded for Ryan Presley, and it literally every baseball nerd on Twitter was just like, oh no. Like the Astros know what they're doing. Like, he has this spin rate that's crazy. He's going to be really good. And I just remember thinking like how funny it was that clearly like the Twins could have done that too. Like, it's not like Astros didn't teach him a new thing. They were just like, you should throw this thing that you're good at more, go for it. And so he's always been kind of one of the symbols of, that the Astros kind of dominance off the field, right? Like the front office dominance. And honestly, the thing that I think of the most, you'll remember the actual circumstances better, but I remember a couple of playoffs ago, it might have even been 2022, where his knee was hurting or something, and he it must have been like the ALCS, like it was late in the playoffs, and he came off.
It was game 6 of the ALCS. Yes, I remember exactly what you're talking about.
He came off the mound, and his leg looked like it snapped in half. Like, it looked like he had Twizzlers for legs. Like, his leg was just dangling, and I was like, oh, this poor guy, they're going to amputate his leg in the dugout. Like, he's never going to walk again. And then 2 days later, they were like, oh yeah, he had this built up cartilage. We were expecting this to happen. He'll be fine. And I was like, you people are freaks. If that happened to me getting out of my car today, I would quit my job. Like, I work from home in my computer. If I did that to my leg, I would quit my job. I cannot believe that he was pitching on it and then continued to pitch on it after.
He is really tough. He's a tough guy. I mean, he's battled through a lot more injuries, I think, than maybe the public knows. And again, nothing debilitating, but just, aches and pains and things that guys getting up in age and that have had a lot of wear and tear on their bodies have had to battle. And he's taken the ball every time they've asked him to. And I've never really understood the fans that, that vilify him. It's one of like, this is not hyperbole, one of the best postseason relievers in baseball history. Like, forget Astros history, forget recent history, like one of the best playoff relievers in modern history.
Mm-hmm.
Was on the mound when they won the 2022 World Series, got huge outs. I had before last year in the ALC, in the wild card series, had a 22 inning scoreless streak in the postseason. Like, maybe it's because he doesn't do it like with 100 miles an hour, or he doesn't have that one like aesthetically pleasing pitch that like the normal casual fan can look at him like, oh man, like that's sick. Like, he's got two really good breaking balls, and he's got a fastball that it's not 100, but it's, it can get to mid upper 90s and he can get it by you. He's the epitome of a professional too, just accountable guy. I've never gotten the fan just villainization of Ryan Presley.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think most fans, when you picture like your prototypical starter, it's never a guy that strikes out everyone. Like, obviously you would like that, but I think people love that Fromber gets ground balls. Like, that for a starting pitcher, that's like a plus, right? It's like, oh, he's gonna get these ground balls or whatever. And then for relievers, everyone has in their head that, you should be able to just come in and strike three guys out. It's like, you only have to pitch for three hitters or whatever. It's like, no, man, you have to get outs in a lot of different ways. And I agree. He was still good last year. I really like Ryan Presley. Granted, the salary is higher than you would like, but I'll come back to that every time. I'm not paying him any money. So I don't particularly care about the salary other than the constraints of roster building, which again is self-imposed, right? Because you just said like Jim Crane doesn't want to go above the CBT. Like, if he wanted to keep Ryan Presley and also sign someone else, he could. He's just choosing not to, which is fine. It's his right. But it's not like there's a salary cap and Ryan Presley's eating too much of it and you can't build a competitive roster with him on there. He still gets out. He's still good. I mean, people were mad at Hader last year. Hader's awesome. Like, people just really get fussy about bullpens.
And, look, the 14 million, it's a little much. It's inflated for a reliever that's getting older that, again, while he wasn't bad last year, was certainly not his elite self. But, can we also talk about that Aroldis Chapman got $11 million from the Red Sox like a month ago? And, it's not as if it's this gross over. Like, if you look at Aroldis Chapman's season last year and Ryan Presley's, like, they're pretty close. Like, it's kind of the price of doing business. Now, I don't think the Astros love that it's on their current books, 14 million, just given where they are financially, but it's not some ridiculous gross amount to be paying a really good major league reliever with that sort of track record, especially when you look at, what Aroldis Chapman just got from the Red Sox. If they're going to struggle to move Ryan Presley for a lot of reasons, the money, how much they'd have to pay down, Ryan Presley has a no trade clause. He can veto any agreed upon trade, just like Nolan Arenado did with the Astros a couple of weeks ago. Presley has some family ties here. His wife is from Houston. Both of his kids were born in Houston. You can speak to this more than I can as a family man, but that carries some weight. And I don't think Ryan Presley wants to leave. I think if there was a situation where he could walk into a team and be the unquestioned closer, my informed speculation tells me that he would consider it, but I don't think he's looking to get out.
Yeah. Why would you? Also the team that you're going to go to that you're the unquestioned closer presumably is not, a World Series contender, right? That's just the truth. And yeah, dude, the idea of moving next door, not even like across states. The idea of picking up all of my stuff and moving it to another house sounds awful. So I am fully in support of any baseball player being like, no, I don't want to move. It's not fun. So I'm with him there.
So if they can't move Ryan Presley and they still have to create some space with some money to add, to make another meaningful addition, to me, there's four other candidates that they could look at that are making substantial money. And substantial is not going to be 14 million, but it's going to be enough.
Jose Abreu.
Oh yeah, they could. Rafael Montero.
Yep. Package deal. Maybe see if somebody wants to. Maybe they should dump them to like the Pirates or something, so the Pirates can say like, actually, our payroll is this high, and then not have to worry about it. But then they don't get yelled at as much. They're doing them a favor, I think, if the Pirates take on that salary.
You're telling me that they wouldn't put butts in PNC Park seats with billboards of Jose Abreu out on the Pittsburgh freeway?
Okay, I've thought this for a while. There are certain players that look really good in different uniforms, right? Like they're just guys that fit. The all black, like Pirates, Rafael Montero and Jose Abreu would look freaking sick in Pirates uniforms. I don't know how to explain that to you. Like Altuve would look silly. That would look weird and wrong. Abreu with the nasty goatee and Montero with the sweet hair, like they would look awesome in Pirates uniform. So let's get this rumor out there. If we can aggregate that, that's where that's how we're solving this problem.
Oh, please don't aggregate that. I can just feel.
Okay, give me the real ones. Sorry.
So the real ones. Victor Caratini, who's going to make $6 million in 2025.
Good for him.
I think exceeded anyone's expectations with overall what he gave the Astros last year as an offensive player, playing first base a little bit, pinch hit off the bench, backing up Yainer Diaz. He's a candidate. Mauricio Dubon, utility guy who's projected to make around $4.5 million in arbitration.
Don't you dare take away Mauricio Dubon. I would be so mad.
That'd be a big hit to the clubhouse too. He's really, really, really.
I love a utility guy. Like that's my favorite type of person in baseball. I could tell you whatever the Astros utility guy is for the last 20 years. They've always been my favorite players.
So who was it before Marwin?
Well, so you had like Eric Bruntlett would play a million different.
I have never heard that person's name until just now.
Dude, are you kidding me? He had the unassisted triple play for the Phillies. You've never seen that highlight before?
I have not.
Eric Bruntlett. I mean, he wasn't good, but he played a bunch of
he played for the 2013 Astros.
Yeah. So, I mean, him, and then like as growing up, it was like Jose Vizcaíno would play a bunch of different positions. But I just I love a utility guy, and so Dubon is off the table for me personally as the assistant Astros GM of this podcast.
Well, Reggie Jackson did leave the organization, so they have openings if any one of us want to go help them out. And then the other two I think are pretty more obvious, and it's either Chas McCormick or Jake Myers. Both of them are going to make around $3 million in arbitration. Again, it's not the $14 million you'd get off the books with Presley, but it's going to be hard to move Ryan Presley. So we've got your thoughts on Dubon, obviously, but of those four guys, which would you be okay, or which one do you think the Astros could survive parting with and come out still, ready to go and compete?
You would have to get another like actual backup catcher who could conceivably start, 100 games for you if you needed to, because, Yainer is right on the fence as far as being playable defensively at catcher. And the idea of going through a full season without like a serviceable backup is really scary. But, there are guys out there that can play catcher and hit 180, and it's not going to like kill your team to have them play 40 games a year or whatever. So, I mean, that one makes the most sense for me. But again, you would have to move that and also find someone of that caliber that can be a backup and be a veteran too, right? Because so much of the value that like Maldonado brought was the calming veteran presence on the field, right? And I don't know Yiner. I've never I don't have any sort of idea of what that vibe is, but to me, you have to have a guy that has been around for a while that is almost a pitching coach, in uniform. And I think Carantini fills that role. There are other guys out there that can do it. I just don't know who they are and if they're substantially cheaper than Carantini.
Yeah, they have Cesar Salazar, who's a lot of the pitchers like throwing to him. I think he's certainly not the offensive threat that Victor Caratini is. And I think when we start talking about this, you really do have to take into account like what Victor Caratini gave this team offensively last year off the bench. Like, I mean, that he hit that walk-off homer he hit against Cleveland early in the season. That felt like a season kind of shifting moment. They had bigger hits as the season went on, but the funk they were in, like him hitting that homer against Cleveland, like that was a big kind of boost for them. And he's a switch hitter. This is a very right-handed team right now. John Singleton, Yordan Alvarez, and Victor Caratini are the only guys that are not just solely right-handed hitters. So
Nicholas Flamel, you forgot about him.
I did forget about Nicholas Flamel, Taylor Trammell. I think I see where you're coming from, and I think that for $6 million, they could certainly find someone maybe worth half that could do what Victor Caratini did just in terms of, what they asked him to do. But, I think Caratini, he's a more valuable piece to this team than most backup catchers on other teams. So
yeah, and but I mean, like, how far we talked about this before? They're like $3 million away from the CBT, right? Like, even if you wave the magic wand and got rid of $6 million, like, I mean, who are you adding that can take the place of a backup catcher and provide you a meaningful upgrade in the outfield? Like
is it you turn to Cesar Salazar and he's your backup catcher for the season, and you sign a veteran to a minor league deal with an NRI, stow him in AAA.
Robbie Grossman.
Sure. I'm talking about a catcher.
Okay.
Like, I don't think this is going to happen. I'm going to regret saying this the minute it comes out of my mouth because people are going to aggregate it. But a guy like Martin Maldonado, like, give Martin Maldonado or someone of his ilk, give him a non-roster invitee, a non-roster deal to camp, start him in AAA, like let him kind of work with the guys there. And then, like, if Cesar Salazar isn't giving you what you want, you can bring him up. Like, that's
how Eric Pratt's up to.
He's part of the Foul Territory Network. You know how to plug things. Good. You're learning how to plug the FT fam.
I definitely knew that, and that's why I said that.
But, I mean, there are ways they can do it. Now, I think with the outfield the way it is, like, I think it'd be tough to trade one of Myers or McCormick because, like, literally right now they're two of your three opening day outfielders. I think you only trade them if you are very confident that Jacob Melton is going to be ready early in the season to contribute, or if you've got another move up your sleeve, or if you portioned out the money right and you can get an established outfielder in here that can give you more than one of those two guys can. But, as it stands right now, it'd be tough for me to part with one of those guys because you don't have much else in the outfield.
And there's not really free agents that are available in any of those price ranges that you'd have to work some sort of trade, to be able to get somebody to upgrade, right? I mean, I can't think of any off the top of my head that are, available. I mean, like, even like Jurickson Profar or somebody that people would be
Jurickson Profar wants like a 3-year deal.
That's my point. Is like, even somebody you're like, oh, I don't want him. It's like, dude, that guy probably gonna get $10-15 million over, a couple of years. He's going to get $30-40 million. Like there's just not people available in that $5-6 million price range unless you're trading.
Right. And you can start to talk about the lower tier guys like the Jesse Winkers, the Randall Grichuk's, like hell, maybe, Ben Gamble came up, like was a guy that they got off the scrap heap and played well for them last year. A lot of people have been asking me about Jason Hayward, a left-handed hitting bat that, did say I was going to retire, and then the Astros called. So maybe he's actually going to retire this time. But there are guys out there. It's just, again, I think fans have conditioned themselves like they've got to go for the big shot here. Like, got to go get Santander, got to go get, that big name. Like, that's not going to happen. And the other free agents, like you said, don't inspire a ton of confidence. So maybe it is you trade one of these guys away, and within the trade, you get a 4A outfielder that you're going to give runway to, or you get, I know they're looking for a leverage reliever right now as well, which to me doesn't really compute when you're trying to trade Ryan Presley, but you're also looking for a leverage reliever. And they're looking for a leverage reliever with Ryan Presley already on the roster. So, and all it says to me is that they think their bullpen's thin as it is. And that's before they even trade Presley. So at this point, like, you wonder, is it even in their best interest to trade Presley other than money? And as we've talked about, Jim Crane's done well for himself. The revenues have done pretty well at Dyken Park. I got it right this time. Dyken Park. If they want to, they can shell out some money, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case.
Yeah. So, looking at the roster, there's definitely holes. Obviously, they've got to come up with something for the outfield, even if it's temporary, so you don't have to put a ton of pressure on Melton coming up at the beginning. Because we talked about it with Reddick, but you remember how bad Kyle Tucker was when he came up? Kyle Tucker is awesome, and he was crushing the ball in the minor leagues and was bad, like really, really bad when he came up. And so, hitting is very difficult to do in the major leagues. You're just not going to get a rookie typically that's going to come up and produce at the level that you want when you're trying to win a championship.
Alex Bregman went 1 for 31 to start his big league career. Like, I can't say this enough and it's a credit to him. What Jeremy Pena did in 2022 is just such an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and Yordan Alvarez in 2019, but Yordan Alvarez is a freak. What those two guys did is just such an outlier to how usually these things work. It is not as linear as that. Like, usually you guys have to take their lumps, and it's a tough way to adjust. And with that being said, you do wonder too, they gave Pedro Leon a look last year. Again, was crushing the ball in AAA. He had been in AAA for 3 years, so you would hope he would have been crushing it by then. But, comes up and just looks completely overmatched.
That's another name for me that I have just a tick with. There's a band called Pedro the Lion that I love. And literally every time I hear Pedro Leon, I just start singing different Pedro the Lion songs in my head.
And, look, they put $4 million into him.
Yeah.
You gotta see what you got there. And look, they brought him up last year, did not go well at all in any fundamental way. It went terribly wrong. But that's a small sample size. Do they give him a run this year? You're going to see Zach DeZenzo in left field. DeZenzo had a better introduction in Major League life than Leon. But again, I just don't see, short of going over the CBT and just saying, screw it, we're going to spend money. I don't see a cure-all for the outfield out there. They had a good right fielder. His name was Kyle Tucker.
All that to say, though, like every team this side of the Dodgers has holes, and they're like, no one's going into a season looking at their roster and going like, we're good everywhere. Like, there's no improvements to be made. Someone's going to play left field for the Astros, and they're not going to like embarrass anyone, or if they do, you just put someone else out there. It's not like you're stuck with just like a gaping hole somewhere, because you can always just, you can find someone who is like serviceable. But again, that requires everyone else on the team to step up, above what you're expecting. If you're going in saying like the floor at this position is so low that we're needing everyone else to outperform, even if it's 5-10% their projections, to make up in the aggregate for, just not having an outfielder essentially. And so, you hope that somebody steps up, somebody claims that. But I mean, again, even like wildest dream scenario, best case scenario, you're not super inspired by an outfield that is held down by Myers and McCormick, but you've got a good lineup outside of that, and those guys can play defense at least. It's not like you're running out people who are killing you on two sides of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see.
It feels like the same conversation that we had, and fans are going to recoil hearing this, but from 2018 to 2023, the Astros ran out Martin Maldonado every day. He hit ninth every day, was the worst, one of, if not the worst qualified hitters in Major League Baseball. And they ran him out there every day. They hit him ninth, and they did all right.
They were famously bad throughout that 5-year stretch, right?
Like you can survive a hole. You can survive a hole in your lineup. You can't let that hole become 2 or 3. And I think that's what the Astros are going to have to confront. And I think that that's kind of what they're going to be thinking about as they consider who to trade, who not to trade, who to go for, or whether, they're done, or whether this is the roster that they will report to West Palm Beach with in February. I guess we'll stick around and find out, and we will keep you updated on everything that this club does between now and when pitchers and catchers report in mid-February on Crush City territory. Thank you guys again so much for your support. It means the world to us. Please rate and review us on Apple. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. It helps us more than you can know. And we will be back soon, hopefully with Josh Reddick. Georgia lost the Sugar Bowl to Notre Dame, and I don't know what happened to Josh after that. So we'll have to go find him and make sure he's okay after Georgia's loss. And once we do, we'll get him back here because we know you guys want to hear from him. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.